There is a truth that no one wants to say out loud. A reality that is destroying millions of relationships before they even begin. Right now, as you watch this video, there are millions of men around the world making a radical decision. They'd rather be alone than get into a relationship. And no, it's not because they're lazy, immature, or afraid of commitment. The reason is far more disturbing than that. These men did the math. Literally. They took pen and paper, weighed everything a modern relationship demands of them against what they can get in return. The result? An equation that simply doesn't add up anymore. A massive emotional, financial, and psychological investment in exchange for a failure rate that's close to 80%. It's like investing all your savings into a business that's almost certain to fail. Would you do that? Of course not. So why should men? But here's the part that really hurts. It's not their fault. The responsibility for this silent crisis in modern relationships falls on the shoulders of those who least expect it. And if you're a woman watching this right now, brace yourself, because what I'm about to reveal goes against everything society has been teaching in recent years. Let's go back a few decades. Your grandparents probably stayed together until death. Your parents might have divorced, or maybe not, but at least they tried to build something solid. Now look around you. How many marriages do you know that really work? How many young couples are genuinely happy and not just posting smiling photos on Instagram while fighting behind the scenes? The divorce rate has skyrocketed. Dating apps have turned people into disposable products. And the scariest part, expectations of what an ideal relationship should be have become completely unrealistic. Men have realized something fundamental. The rules of the game have changed, but only for one side. In the past, there was a clear social contract. The man worked, provided financially, and offered security. The woman took care of the home, the children, and appreciated that effort. I'm not saying that model was perfect or fair, but it worked because both sides knew exactly what to expect from each other. There was balance. There was reciprocity. Today, women have gained financial independence, sexual freedom, and full autonomy. And that's wonderful, no doubt about it. But here's the problem. Their expectations of men haven't decreased proportionally. In fact, they've increased. Now a man has to be financially successful, but also emotionally available. Strong and protective, but also vulnerable and sensitive. Ambitious in his career, but present at home. Tall, fit, funny, cultured, well-traveled. And on top of that, an emotional therapist available 24 hours a day. And what do men get in return for this impossible list of requirements? A woman who's also too busy with her career, too tired to invest emotionally, and who can end everything at any time through an app that's just a swipe away from the next candidate. A man who can lose half of his assets in a divorce. Who can be accused of being abusive just for disagreeing. Who constantly has to prove his worth while being treated as replaceable. Dating apps have poured gasoline on this fire. Take an average woman and put her on Tinder. Within a few hours, she'll have hundreds of matches, dozens of men fighting for her attention, complimenting her, offering expensive dinners and trips. Now take an average man. He'll swipe right on hundreds of profiles and maybe get 5 matches, 2 of which will reply, and none will actually be interested. This absurd imbalance creates a dangerous illusion for women. They start to believe they really have hundreds of high-quality men interested in them. The brutal truth is that those men on the apps aren't looking for a serious relationship with them. They're looking for something casual. But women mistake temporary attention for real value. And then they start believing they deserve only the top of the pyramid, the 5% of men who are rich, tall, charming, and successful. The problem is, those men know exactly how valuable they are in the market, and they won't settle for just one person when they have lines of options. Meanwhile, the average man, hardworking, honest, and ready for commitment, is completely ignored. He doesn't have the latest car, he's not 6 feet tall, he doesn't take photos in Dubai every month. So he simply doesn't exist to most women on dating apps. And after getting rejected 100 times, being treated as invisible, and watching women at his same socio-economic level demand billionaire standards, this man makes a rational decision to leave the game. If you're enjoying this content and want to understand more about modern relationships, subscribe to the channel and turn on the notification bell. I guarantee the next few minutes will open your eyes even more to this reality that no one has the courage to talk about. But what happens when this man leaves the dating market? He discovers something liberating. Life alone isn't that bad. In fact, it can be incredibly good. He invests in himself, his hobbies, his friends, his career. He doesn't have to negotiate every decision, doesn't have to justify his spending, doesn't have to deal with constant emotional drama. He finds peace. And the longer he stays alone, the harder it becomes to imagine giving up that tranquility for someone who will probably devalue his efforts anyway. The statistics are alarming. The number of men between 20 and 30 years old who are completely out of the dating market has doubled in the last decade. They're not actively looking, not trying, they've simply given up. And before you think they're just losers who can't get anyone, many of them are perfectly capable of having relationships. They simply calculated the cost-benefit ratio and decided it's not worth it. Social media has turned relationships into ego competitions. Every woman now has instant access to hundreds of male profiles that look perfect. Edited photos, filtered lives, exaggerated success stories. And compared to that digital fantasy, the real boyfriend will always seem insufficient. He doesn't post deep quotes every day. He doesn't have a six-pack in every photo. He doesn't travel to exotic places every weekend. He's just human. But being an ordinary human is no longer acceptable when you have the illusion that you can get the extraordinary. Men have realized they're competing against fake versions of other men, against filters, lies, and staged lives. And in that impossible competition, they will always lose. So many simply stopped competing. They deleted the apps, canceled their online dating subscriptions, and went back to focusing on real life. But then they discovered something interesting. Most women are no longer available in real life either. They're all glued to their phones, waiting for Prince Charming to show up on Instagram. The throwaway culture has taken hold completely. Any flaw, any mistake, any moment of weakness, and that's it, it's easier to replace than to fix. Did the man forget the anniversary? Break up. Is he going through a tough time at work and became distant? Break up. Gained a few pounds? Break up. The modern woman has no patience for imperfections because she believes there's someone perfect waiting for her just a few clicks away. And you know what's sadder? Many times, there is another man waiting. But he's not someone better, just someone new. Someone who hasn't yet shown his flaws, who's still in the courting phase, pretending to be ideal. And then the cycle starts again. The woman trades an imperfect relationship for one that seems perfect, until she discovers the new one also has flaws. And she trades again. And again. Until she realizes, usually too late, that she's been chasing something that doesn't exist. Meanwhile, the men who were discarded in this process learned their lesson. They saw friends trade stable boyfriends for thrilling flings that ended in disaster. They saw colleagues waste years trying to please women who were never satisfied. They saw fathers paying huge alimonies while barely being allowed to see their children. And they drew the obvious conclusion: modern relationships are a terrible deal for men. The financial issue is a chapter of its own in this story. Women want independence, but still expect men to pay for most things. They want equality, but find it offensive to split the bill on a first date. They want to be treated as equals, but demand that the man earn more, have a better car, pay for expensive dinners. This contradiction creates an absurd scenario where the man has to bear traditional responsibilities without receiving the traditional respect that used to come with them. A single man spends his money however he wants. He buys the new video game, travels with friends, invests in hobbies. A man in a relationship spends it on expensive restaurants to impress her, constant gifts to please her, romantic trips that she chooses. And in the end, if the relationship ends, all that investment goes down the drain. Worse, if there's a marriage, he might lose half of the assets he built even before meeting her. Divorce laws in many countries are absurdly favorable to women. A man can work 20 years to build something and lose everything in court. He can be kept away from his own children based only on unproven accusations. He can be forced to pay alimony to an ex-wife who's already with another man. The legal system treats married men as guilty until proven innocent, and even when proven innocent, they rarely come out unscathed. Older men try to warn younger ones about these dangers. They tell stories of devastating divorces, false accusations, years of hard work lost. But they're called bitter, resentful, sexist. Society prefers to ignore these warnings and keep pushing the narrative that every single man is immature or has issues. No one wants to admit that many chose to stay single precisely because they are mature and rational enough to assess the risks. The social pressure on single men is immense. Family members ask when they'll get a girlfriend. Friends make jokes about being lonely. Society treats men without relationships as if they were incomplete, failures, objects of pity. But those same men are living full, satisfying, drama-free lives. They're building careers, developing talents, forming deep friendships. They're happy. They're just not willing to sacrifice that happiness for a relationship that will probably end badly. And here's the part that really stings. Women are starting to feel the consequences of this. More and more women in their 30s complain that they can't find good men to date, that all of them are immature, lazy, or afraid of commitment. But the truth is different. Good men do exist. They're just no longer interested in trying. They're tired of being treated like options, like providers who get nothing in return, like the culprits of every relationship problem. Reality is knocking at the door, and many women don't want to open it. They spent their youth rejecting decent men because they thought they deserved better. Because they had too many options on dating apps. Because Instagram showed perfect lives they also wanted. Now, years later, they look around and realize that the men they rejected are already taken, or have simply stopped looking. And the extraordinary men they thought they deserved never really appeared. The biological clock doesn't care about female empowerment. A 35-year-old woman who spent 15 years focusing on her career and rejecting ordinary suitors wakes up one day wanting children. But the men her age now want younger women. And younger men don't take older women seriously for long-term relationships. She has built for herself a time trap with no easy way out. Statistics show a disturbing phenomenon. The number of single women over 35 has skyrocketed in recent years. Successful, beautiful, intelligent women, but completely alone. And the standard response is to blame men for being intimidated by strong women. But that convenient explanation ignores the obvious. Those men aren't intimidated, they're tired. Tired of impossible standards, of being treated like accessories, of investing in people who don't appreciate them. The entertainment industry sold women a lie. Romantic movies showed that there's always a perfect man waiting. TV shows taught that you can have it all, a brilliant career, a perfect body, an exciting social life, and still find a Prince Charming who accepts all your conditions. Reality is quite different. You can have professional success or dedicate time to relationships. You can demand perfection or have someone real. But to have everything at once? That's fantasy sold as possibility. Men have learned to live without female validation. In the past, having a woman was a symbol of status, of proven masculinity. Today, many men have found purpose in other areas. In the gym, in gaming, in personal projects, in investments. They no longer need a partner to feel complete. And that emotional independence is exactly what modern women claim to want, but secretly hate. Because it reduces the power they once had over men. The inconvenient truth is that women struggle more with loneliness than men. Psychological studies show this repeatedly. Men adapt, find purpose alone, build friendship networks based on activities. Women tend to define their self-worth through relationships, social validation, and intense emotional connections. When those things are missing, the dissatisfaction runs deep. And no amount of professional success completely fills that void. The feminist movement promised that women didn't need men, that they could do everything on their own. And in part, it was right. Women can be financially independent, can have children alone, can live fulfilling lives without partners. But here's the problem. Being able to live without something doesn't mean it's better to live without it. And now millions of women are discovering that forced independence isn't as gratifying as it was made out to be. Dating apps have created generations of emotionally damaged people. Men who gave up completely after being rejected hundreds of times. Women who became impossible to satisfy because they got used to constant attention from dozens of admirers. Both lost the ability to form real connections, to have patience with imperfections, to build something lasting. And now we're seeing the consequences. An entire society of lonely people blaming each other. The current generation will be remembered as the one that chose virtual profiles over real people. That preferred temporary likes to lasting love. That traded commitment for convenience. And when they look back, they'll realize they wasted their best years chasing perfection instead of building something imperfect, but real with someone who was available. But there's one group that won't look back with regret. The men who left the game early. They saw the iceberg before the ship sank. They jumped out before losing everything. And now they're on solid ground, watching the chaos from a distance, Glad they made the hard but smart choice to prioritize peace over passion, stability over excitement, and chosen solitude over toxic relationships. So what do we do with all this information? How do we fix something that seems irreparably broken? The answer starts with brutal honesty. We need to stop pretending everything is fine. We need to admit that women have contributed significantly to this modern relationship crisis. Not all, of course, but enough to create a systemic pattern that has driven millions of good men out of the dating market. The solution is not to go back to the 1950s. No reasonable person is asking for that. Women's achievements are important and irreversible. But achievements come with responsibilities. If women want independence, they must accept that they can no longer demand that men fulfill traditional roles. They can't want equality only in the convenient parts and privileges in the hard moments. Either there is real partnership from both sides, or there is no functional relationship. Women need to recalibrate their expectations to reality. The perfect man does not exist. That Instagram profile with a sculpted body, professional success, and infinite emotional sensitivity is a manufactured illusion. In real life, men have bellies, bad days, moments of insecurity, and constant flaws. Just like women. And relationships work when two imperfect people decide to grow together, not when one imperfect person waits for a perfect one to show up. Dating apps need to be used consciously, or simply abandoned. They were designed to addict, not to connect. To make you always believe there's something better waiting. And while you're searching for that something better, you're losing real opportunities with real people. If you've been on dating apps for years with no results, maybe the problem isn't lack of options but the inability to choose and invest in someone real. To the men who gave up, I understand. I truly do. The risks are real, the disappointments hurt, and the peace of solitude is tempting. But not every woman is impossible to satisfy. Not every woman will use you and throw you away. There are women who value effort, who understand reciprocity, who want to build something real. Are they a minority? Maybe. But they exist. And closing yourself off completely means never finding them. The most important lesson here isn't about who's right or who's to blame. It's about consequences. Actions have consequences. When women spend years rejecting decent men in search of fantasy, the consequence is being alone. When men completely give up on trying, the consequence is a fragmented society. When both choose pride over vulnerability, the consequence is collective loneliness. Relationships require something our generation has lost: the ability to tolerate discomfort, to have difficult conversations, to work through problems instead of running from them, to choose commitment even when the initial passion fades, to value loyalty over temporary emotions. These skills aren't natural, they must be developed. And an entire generation grew up without developing them because they always had the option to simply replace instead of repair. The final truth is this: men are not staying single because they're problematic. They're staying single because they've made a rational analysis of the situation and concluded that the costs outweigh the benefits. And until that equation changes, until women offer value proportional to what they demand, until relationships become partnerships again instead of competitions, these men will continue choosing to stay alone. And you know what's most ironic? The longer these men stay single, the more they get used to that life. The harder it becomes to convince them to take the risk again. Women have an increasingly small window of time to realize this and change their attitude. Because a few years from now, these men won't just be avoiding relationships temporarily. They'll have built entire lives with no need for partners. And then it will be too late. The responsibility to change this lies with those who created the problem. And in this case, as politically incorrect as it may be to admit, it was mainly women. With unrealistic expectations, disproportionate demands, and constant devaluation of available men. The ball is in their court now. They can keep blaming men for all the problems, or they can look in the mirror and honestly ask, what did I contribute to this situation? And what can I do differently? If this video made you think, subscribe to the channel for more content that no one dares to talk about. Because truth doesn't need to be popular to be necessary. And this truth, as uncomfortable as it may be, needs to be said.